Staying on the fuck war tip, last week we sat down with activist and Green Party candidate for U.S. Senate Arn Menconi to talk about his activism, his campaign, the issues, and why we just can't be nice about apathy anymore. Take a look.
I was a two-term Eagle County commissioner through 2001 and 2009 as a Democrat, and I ran a national charity for disadvantaged youth that had 40,000 kids go through it, that I taught them social justice. In 2001, Republicans tried to recall me because I took a non-aggressive stance against us going into Afghanistan. When Barack Obama went back into Iraq in 2014, I lost my job because I was talking about this on Facebook. And I then went out to Washington, D.C. and sat in about 6 months of Senate hearings to see if anybody was going to do anything and get my elected officials to do something to stop the war in the Middle East. And then when Obama started bombing the Doctors Without Border Hospital a year ago, expanding the war in Afghanistan, and approving a 2-year National Defense Authorization Act budget so they don't have to be in session right there now. They could be out campaigning. I decided I needed to go out and fight for the people who are being killed by our oligarchy, for the innocent people, for the breeding of terrorism, and this is the way I'm doing it. I'm an activist, and I'm going to stay an activist. And there's no one in the U.S. Senate. There's 100 people in the world called U.S. senators, and none of them are truly talking for the people because they're all taking money. They're all trying to play it safe. I don't care if it's Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders. I got arrested on Monday. We did a die-in on the Capitol steps. I tried to show up to work early, and a bunch of cops didn't let me get in there. That's going to continue. I would do a hunger strike if I have to in the first 100 days to get people to wake up. So I've been arrested numerous times. People don't think it matters. It's about getting out there and grabbing the narrative and talking about what people aren't talking about. Fuck trying to get legislation passed and all the other bullshit that this oligarchy is doing. It's about getting people to wake up, especially the progressives who are sitting on the couch right now having arguments with themselves on Facebook and social media instead of getting out into the streets.
So talk about this. I mean, you mentioned getting 5 to 10%, and I mean, it's pretty clear that unless there's some huge shift that we aren't seeing, that Jill Stein won't win the presidency. Talk about the importance of just having that percentage and why then it's important for people to vote for something outside the two-party system.
Well, because it's the truth, and because if you're voting for the two-party system, you have blood-drenched hands. You're voting for a military budget that's $1 trillion. You're voting for a system that won't even discuss environmental destruction or what they call global warming. So I'm playing Scrappy so that people could find out what the real issues are. So people should be running for federal offices so that the people who are taking the money from special interests has a thorn in their side. The other thing people should be doing right now is they should be going to wherever their federal elected officials are out campaigning, and they should be doing laydowns and demonstrations and protests and getting arrested right now, because that's what it's going to take to get this story out there. Because obviously with the WikiLeaks dump, we learned all we got out of that was people talking about grabbing pussy.
So with that sort of, you say like playing Scrappy, is that sort of like a bit like the Trump idea, like fuck PC, let's just like call it like it is?
Put your heart and soul in the fact that there's 60 million people who are in refugee camps, that we've killed millions of people. Donald Trump doesn't have integrity. What people like you and like others have is that we know the gig is up. And we, as Lee Camp said to me, you're just like Chris Hedges. You don't have hope, you have kids. I have kids, and when they're my age or when they're in their 30s, and global warming has caused the rise of sea levels to 20 and 30%, and when they only know endless war in their lifetime, and that this economy is not stable, is sustainable because they spend all their money on whatever the oligarchy knows, we have to go to this level to get above the noise so that the truth could be told. I've talked about policy to no end. I've talked and wrote stories about everything that you're supposed to talk about, and no one gave a shit about it.
So talk about your platform. What are some of the cornerstones of your candidacy?
I want people to understand what Chris Edges talks about, that this is a corporate totalitarian organization that's running that, or whatever you want to call it. He also calls it the global corporate mafia, which I stole that one from him. There's been a sort of an evaporation of the distinction between the neocons and the liberal interventionists. So we're always going to war. That's sort of a business plan. And people have to understand that. So, number one, my platform has always been about stopping endless wars and why we're at these wars, because peace is not profitable. Number two, and a very important, if there's no prioritization, is this environmental destruction, not global warming, not climate change. It's environmental destruction. And then the third one is the inequality gap that's been going on. Fourth is racial injustice. We've militarized our police departments. On a Colorado level, what people want me to talk about is fracking and how Colorado is an oil and gas bought state, and the Democrats have totally sold out to this. Josh Fox told me this, and Josh is helping Hillary Clinton, and he's saying, "Well, we got to get rid of Donald Trump." And I said, "Fuck that shit. What do you want to do? Death by drowning or death by fire? Are we all going to just go to sleep on this?" The other issue is the TPP. Coloradoans are very, very awake about trying to stop the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and there's something on the ballot here called Amendment 69. It's for universal health care and really pushing for the first state in the country to try to move the needle forward, because Obamacare was a sellout to the healthcare industry, and competitive healthcare is just screwed. And rates are going to go up 20 to 40% in Colorado with Obamacare, and that story is just starting to come out. And then, excuse me, the fourth issue here in Colorado and all across the nation is to raise the minimum wage to at least $15 an hour. We have something else that's real interesting to your viewers is there's Amendment 71 that has to be stopped. It's called Raise the Bar. And it's the governor, a Democratic governor, who tried to get to be the vice president with Hillary Clinton, who is trying with Republicans to push it and make it harder to get referendums on the ballot. And they're putting a lot of money behind it, because the state legislators are not passing legislation for the people. They're passing legislation for the powerful. And they want to stop that so that GMO labeling can't get a referendum by the people. Universal health care, minimum wage, and anti-fracking.
So talk about the, past November. What will you do? I mean, obviously right now you're very, very focused on the campaign, but how will your activities shift after November?
Well, I know you personally, and I look up to you, and I look up to a lot of the people that are in Washington, like Medea Benjamin, who taught me, and Daniel Ellsberg, who I spent 10 days with, and John Kiriakou, and Thomas Drake, and Jesselyn Radak, and Lee Camp, and Manar with Mint Press News. And I got to tell you guys, I don't know what I'm going to do after this, because I've been running as hard as I can for the past 2 or 3 years. And I'm afraid that people are kind of, this activism isn't some kind of job, you know. This is starting to feel like everybody has sort of we've squandered, as Hedges said, the best opportunity that we've had, and we're going to be lost in the wilderness. And I have a 10 and 11-year-old that I've given it my all for, and I've got to take care of them. And I'm an older dad, and I want to be there for them first. And I hope other people could do it. And I'll advise everyone, and I'll try to figure out ways to keep talking about the truth and getting the details out there about the military budget and how they're lying to us about the military budget and the issues that I think I know as well as anybody, and continue getting that out there. And I'll continue supporting my friends like you and others in any way I can. I hope I can find a way where I can continue being an activist.
Well, you've certainly been working hard, and I always advocate that people take time to collect themselves, because if you're feeling splintered and broken and exhausted, then you can't be as efficient of an activist anyway. So
I don't know. I got to tell everybody, I taught snowboarding for 8 years, and I raced 100-mile mountain bikes for 10 years. There's no more fun than this. And in all of those races, it was a suffer fest. and you didn't get to the start line thinking, oh boy, this is going to be a lot of fun. You did it because you knew you were taking your game to a whole new level. And I'm having the most fun I have had in my life. It's just a matter of there's financial things that have to be taken into consideration while you're trying to do these things when you have children. And so where there's a will, there's a way. So we'll figure out what to do.
For more on Arn and his campaign, visit ArnMenconi.com.